So on Socialist News and Views, we let folks introduce themselves. Do you want to just both let listeners know who you are and viewers?
Sure. My name is Bill Stodden. I am running for president of the Socialist Party USA. I've been a member of the Socialist Party off and on for the last 20, almost 24 years, more than 24 years, 25 years almost. Oh, hard to believe. First got involved with Dave McReynolds when he was running for president back in 2000. That's when I joined the party. Me and some good comrades were instrumental in founding the Socialist Party of South Dakota around that time, believe it or not. And during the war and everything, we were basically the anti-war movement in the Northern Black Hills. We called ourselves Citizens for Peace, but that's because calling yourself a socialist that time was basically like saying you supported bin Laden. So rest in peace, Toby Keith.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Cholensky. My pronouns are she, her. I am running as the vice presidential candidate of the Socialist Party USA in 2024. I have served as the co-chair, I think longer than anyone in modern history, at least. I've also been on the national committee of the Socialist Party for well over a decade. I joined back in 2001. I came up in the Young People's Socialist League, which is the youth affiliate of the Socialist Party. And I've served on the Women's Commission. I've worked on every presidential campaign and several local campaigns. I founded several locals. Recently, I founded a local here in Minnesota, and we actually have been able to get 3 Socialist Party members elected to office in the last 3 elections here in Minneapolis.
Nice. Well, yeah. Now you mentioned you're running for president and vice president this election with Socialist Party. I feel like I don't know if there's more third party campaigns, or maybe they're just getting more attention. But a bunch of these campaigns are at least nominally independent of the Democratic and Republican Party, and then there's other middle ground people that may be coming in to muddy the waters as well. RFK Jr. is even getting coverage still from left outlets for some reason, even though he's like a rabid Zionist, among many other significant critiques. But as far as actual left campaigns, there's Cornel West, Jill Stein, Claudia de la Cruz, and Karina Garcia of the Party of Socialism and Liberation. And there's some others. And at the moment, I'm currently planning to gather signatures for Cornel West's campaign. I've been working with some folks on that to get him on the ballot in Minnesota. I guess I see him as the strongest left challenge at this point, but I'm willing to, kind of maneuver depending on, how things go towards the end of this year so that we can get the strongest challenge to the capitalist parties. What do you say to other folks that are interested in challenging the duopoly? Maybe they're interested in one of the campaigns that I mentioned before. Maybe they're taking a different approach. What do you say to get them to put their support behind the Socialist Party USA campaign?
Well, I think that probably the strongest argument for the Socialist Party's campaign specifically is that we are a multi-tendency socialist party. I don't know that Cornel West is actually actively critiquing the system of capitalism and its related social illnesses like racism, sexism, hypermilitarism, mass incarceration, all this, basically everything that comes along with capitalism that you see. We're actually asking people to consider the possibility of reorganizing the entire economy to promote economic justice for workers. And this is one of the things the Socialist Party is doing. We're not going to win the election this year. We're not going to get the majority of electoral college votes. And I believe, in all fairness to the other campaigns, I believe the Socialist Party is going to get exactly as many electoral college votes in the fall as Cornel West will. And so when you say what's the strongest left-wing challenge to the duopoly, I believe that we're going to finish exactly where Cornel West finishes, which is 0. The Socialist Party, we have the advantage that Cornel West or Jill Stein, where she remains unaffiliated, she's going for the green one, but we have an advantage of having a long history for a party, and we actually have a solid critique of capitalism within the Socialist Party that Cornel West, Jill Stein, and to some degree, Comrade de la Cruz doesn't necessarily have, in that we're a solidly working class campaign. Stephanie and I both work 40-hour-a-week jobs. So we're of the working class. I don't know how these other campaigns decide that they're able to go out and campaign full time, but they certainly don't work regular jobs like maybe you and certainly us work. In that sense, we are capable of speaking from the working class as opposed to just to the working class. Cornell West is an elite academic. Jill Stein is a medical doctor. Claudia de la Cruz, I'm not really sure about her biography, but she's with a party that has a lot of money and they can make very slick advertisements. Uh, what I talk about the poor, that's because I'm about a paycheck away from being dirt poor myself. I work in a charity where I help people make their rent payments every single month, but it wasn't that long ago when I would apply to that same charity to help make my own rent payment. And so I think that for a lot of people, they're running for president as sort of an academic exercise, whereas I'm running for president because we need to build a movement that can actually counter capitalism, that can address homelessness, that can address food insecurity, that can address the issues that working class people in this country face. And I think that Stephanie and myself and the Socialist Party itself can actually do a pretty good job of that. We have a great set of principles. We have a great platform that talks about working class issues, and I think from the working class itself. That said, I don't want to take anything away from those other campaigns because what we're trying to do is we're trying to build a movement for socialism. We're not going to win the election this year, but if we bring attention to socialism, if we move the Green Party left, for example, or if we get the PSL out there and they're really talking about socialism, they're really talking about workers' democracy and the workers actually taking the means of control over and people actually taking control of their lives, we're actually talking about socialism, then socialism wins. The Socialist Party will get members when we're running our campaign. And we might not get one single electoral college vote this time, but maybe next time we might have more members. So we're not starting at zero next time. So that's what we're out here about. We're out here to build a movement for socialism. We're out here to talk about workers' democracy. We're out here to talk about the various different ways we can accomplish that in society. And we're out here actually posing a very solid critique of capitalism from a working class perspective, because I believe that we represent that. And I would say that that's probably our biggest benefit.
Just to add on that, I don't view us as in competition with other third parties. In fact, the last election we ran in tandem with the Green Party. Howie Hawkins ran, and he has been a Socialist Party member for many, many years, longer than me. I don't think our goal is to say we're better or worse than them. We do have a very unique role to fill as far as our platform and our history. The Socialist Party USA, as many people know, formed from the Debs caucus of the Socialist Party of America, which was the far left part of the party. And one of the main points of contention was if socialists should work within the Democratic Party, parties that support capitalism, and try to, this is the time of the new left, try to basically push them to the left. And we said, no, that is not our strategy. The left in the US is not in good shape, but as far as a strategy of trying to make the Democrats a socialist party, that definitely has not been fruitful. And we are a multi-tendency working class party, and the working class itself is multi-tendency. That's one reason the Socialist Party, especially to me, is very important, because I consider myself an anarcho-communist. I don't really fit well within the Marxist parties. So we don't have a very strict party line like other more top-down parties might, where we're more local based. Our leadership doesn't have a lot of power. The power lies in the members. Everything about what we do is democratic, grassroots. That's our lifeblood. So that's one thing that distinguishes us. I really would like to build more cooperation with other parties on the far left, but we are, of course, doing this campaign primarily to spread class consciousness, because we are not reformist, we are revolutionary. We know that the changes we seek are not going to be brought about through voting, because the owning class would never allow that. Our goal is to spread class consciousness, and there is a dire need for that. And electoral campaigns like this, especially the presidential one, it's always been one of the most effective ways to spread our message, to find people that we normally wouldn't reach, and to build the party. It is effective. I think we have a great platform, and the campaign speaks for itself. So if anyone's curious, either check out the Socialist Party USA or Stodden Cholensky 2024.
Yeah, I think you guys covered this a little bit, but I was thinking the other day, kind of like thinking like I should make a little list of like reasons why socialists might run for political office. specifically thinking in bourgeois elections and specifically the presidential election. Um, and I thought it would just be like a couple reasons, but then I kept thinking of new reasons. And I think I ended up with like 8 or 9 distinct, well, depending on how you figured out, kind of distinct reasons of why you might do that, from pressuring other parties into concessions, all the way to, again, propagandizing and finding a way to get your message out to people that you wouldn't, ordinarily reach. Um, you know, what do you think are the reasons you two decided to run this campaign? And then you mentioned this a little bit too. What do you say to people that say that socialists could better use their time on campaigns and strategies that aren't based around electoralism, and participating in the elections, that you could be out doing other work, and that would be a better use of your time? You have thoughts on that?
Yeah, the first thing is, we can go back to, I'm not a very good person to quote Karl Marx. I know that much Karl Marx. Like Stephanie, I come from a little bit more
You know,
anarcho-communist tradition. I don't know, like
Bill is very
anarcho-social.
knowledgeable. He's just very humble. I mean, he's a
Carl,
PhD. He has expertise in Latin America, foreign policy in Latin America. He is very knowledgeable.
yes, well, thank you, Stephanie. But I would say that Karl Marx said that the working class should utilize whatever tools they have at their disposal. And in this case, one of the tools at our disposal is the elections. We can participate in the elections, so why not? I mean, we're a political party. That's what we're supposed to do. We're not the DSA. The DSA is a pressure group within the Democratic Party for the most part. They're the people that Stephanie was talking about that dreamed in 1973 of entering the Democratic Party to pull them to the left. I don't like to use the term pushing them to the left, because that suggests that they're on their right and they're kind of pushing them. The DSA isn't on the right of the Democratic Party. The DSA is the left wing of the Democratic Party. And their whole goal, if you talk about Bernie Sanders or AOC or any of these other individuals who identify with the DSA, their whole goal was to be within the Democratic Party and to pull the Democratic Party to the left. And as Stephanie correctly mentioned, we see how good that's done. It's not done very good. So the Socialist Party itself stands apart from that system as our own party. And we got this a lot. Maybe you have a question later on about this, but we get a lot of people asking us, why are you guys running a party independent from, like, say, the Green Party, for example? Why don't you just cancel your campaign and go and help the Green Party get their 5% so they can get matching funds, and then the left will win? And the reason I'm running for president and not running from the Green Party is I don't have anything against the Greens. I just am not a Green. I don't agree with that platform. I agree with the Socialist Party's platform. We have an independent political organization. So that's why we run campaigns. We had this discussion within our convention about whether or not we should run a campaign or utilize those resources in a different way. And I think, the thing is that we need to, just like we're a multi-tendency party, we should also be a multi-tactic party. We should utilize every single tactic that's available to us to build socialism. We can raise money. I mean, the Socialist Party can raise money. The campaign can raise money. We've already raised a little bit of money. When we make all of our donors public, unlike some other campaigns, we make all of our donors public. We report them out. We've itemized them out to the FEC. And we tell people who we get our money from, because we believe that this is a people-oriented and people-led movement. It's not us who's putting all the money behind it. We're not getting secret dark money from some tech billionaire or something like that. We're getting all of our money from the people who believe in this campaign and support this campaign. And why shouldn't we utilize those resources to run for president? We won't win any electoral college votes, but we can utilize those resources then to get out and tell people this is what class warfare is. And guess what? You're in class warfare. You may not know it, but you're having class warfare conducted against you. So you may as well join it. You may as well fight back. And I think that that's one of the things that electoral campaigns can do. We can show people that, look, there are people that will stand up for these ideas. There are people that will put time and effort and money and resources behind these ideas. There are people who will fight for them. So if you might be on the fence out there wondering if you should get involved, well, you can see other people are getting involved. So why not donate a little time to volunteer, or why not donate $25 here or $50 here to help get this message out to people? Because if you really believe that message, you got to put some skin in the game too. And that's just how it is. So I'm taking my time, I'm donating my time, and also I spend $25 a month. I donate $25 a month to my own campaign because I believe in it. And Stephanie's donating her time. All of the people on our campaign are donating their time and their money and that kind of stuff. And we're all working together because that's the kind of thing we need to do to get that message out about socialism. And as Stephanie will say, to spread class consciousness and the facts about class warfare.
I would say that the main thing, why it's important to run a campaign and work in electoral politics rather than focusing elsewhere, is because one of the things that the owning classes rely on is keeping Americans ignorant of the fact that there is an alternative to capitalism. If we are not in this arena and pushing different policies, most people are not going to hear about them. Most people are going to think that the only options they have are fascists or people who tend to capitulate with fascists and will always side with fascists if the other option is communist, which is Democratic. And sorry, like went out. that kind of shocked me. I don't know why that happened. My lighting is weird because my ring light broke, and I'm trying to like cobble together something so you can see me.
We were just talking about the fascists, and then the lights went out.
I
And it's
know.
like, what's going on? They're after us here. So,
no, but it is important that we put those different policies out there. Another way we might differ from like social democrats or even people like Bernie Sanders. Like personally, I don't think the DSA is the left wing of the Democratic Party. I think they aspire to be, but I don't think they're there yet. That's one reason we wouldn't support them, because we do not want to reform capitalism. We want to build a new system from the ground up. Socialism is not when the government does stuff. Socialism is not a capitalist welfare state like Sweden or Norway. That is not socialism. That is a capitalist welfare state. What we support is socialism, which is when the workers own and control the means of production. And our end goal, of course, is communism, a classless, stateless society. We don't want to make things just better for people in wealthy countries, because even if we were to succeed and get a welfare state, we were to make those reforms, and we would be more like some of the Scandinavian countries. Those countries are able to offer such a generous welfare state because of the exploitation of the global South. We are internationalist. We want class consciousness and socialism globally, we're not just worried about the US. I mean, obviously the US does enough intervening in other countries. We're not saying that, we want more of that. I don't think that would be in our interests. But we aren't just for the working class here in the US. We are in solidarity with all working class people, and we need to put those policies out there and to critique the US's foreign policy as well. If socialists as a group are not doing that, no one is going to be hearing that message. And that's why it is important to work within electoral politics. No, we have no corporate funding. We're all volunteers. I think we would probably win the award for the poorest campaign. It's like our members, and we're all working class. I mean, I don't know that obviously, but the Socialist Party, we have one staff member.
Right.
We're all, we are definitely working class, but we need to put those alternatives out there. It's very important. I think that's one of the only ways we're going to build class consciousness, especially now when voters are so disillusioned. And that is why they're disillusioned, because there are no answers. We have this culture war where they're talking about different things and people take their sides, but no one's really addressing the actual problems that people are facing every day. And we can do that.
Yeah, and speaking of foreign policy, once all these Scandinavian countries join NATO, they won't even have that money for those welfare states anymore, even with their exploitation, because they'll have all those weapons that they need to throw in money for. As far as platform of the campaign, you've talked about some of that stuff, but if you were to focus in on a few topics, say 3 or 4 issues or campaign planks that you think are going to connect most directly with working class voters in this year 2024, think of it as kind of what you put on a sign, or what you put on a table, that kind of stuff. What kinds of things, what kind of mottos or issues or campaign slogans, that kind of thing, are there things that you guys are thinking about that you think are really on the minds of working class people?
Well, I think peace is one of them. Peace is really big with regard not only to working class, but also with young people. I think like college age and 20-something. Obviously, I'm a Gen Xer. I'm a young Xer, but I'm still a Gen Xer. But we're talking with Gen Z. I got 2 Gen Z kids. My kids are both teenagers. And I'm thinking about what kind of world they're going to have to go into. And if you got a world that's completely riven by like two more new forever wars, I mean, we just got out of the one that lasted 20 years that existed since they were born. And like, it wasn't like 6 months before we were back in another one. Like these people, especially like Biden, for example, he's never met a war that he doesn't want to join. I can't think of a single one that he hasn't been like on the gung ho for, and so he's now calling for us to continue to put endless resources, endless money, endless time into Ukraine. And he's now interested, just itching to start another war with Iran over this business in Palestine, the genocide in Palestine. The people there are trying to live in peace, and Israel just decides that they're going to go bomb the whole country and continue their genocidal apartheid business going on there. So we're expanding that now to Yemen. We're expanding that to Jordan. We're expanding that, making plans up to invade and to bomb Iran. Like, I don't understand what it is about this government and their addiction to war, but it must have something to do with money, because if you got 70 to 80 to 90% of the people in this country opposing the war in Palestine and calling for a ceasefire, like a no conditions, an unconditional ceasefire right now, so we can sort this out and figure it out in a peaceful milieu rather than during a war. And the government just continues to say, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to pressure them to do a ceasefire. We're going to continue to fund them or try to fund them. We're going to continue to put money into completely unrelated bills so that we can continue to fund that genocide over there. People have a real problem with that. And it's really offensive to Americans that our government is doing that in our name, not to mention barbaric. That we're supporting that action over there. I think that's probably the biggest thing we've come across this spring that's required the most attention. Not less important, but slightly down on our radar, of course, is jobs and the cost of living. We talk about rent. We talk about the price of food, and we talk about how inflation has cut into any gains that the workers made as a result of the narrowed job market during pandemic. They got anywhere between a 5 to 7% raise, but we've been having inflation now that means that the prices go up by 21%. So workers are now poorer, even though there's more people on the job force, and the news constantly talks about these great job numbers that the Biden administration has been able to put up. First of all, he hasn't done anything. It's not him that's doing that. Second of all, we still haven't gotten inflation under control. We talk about 3, 4, 5% inflation, but that's not deflation. That's not the same thing as prices going down. That just means they're going up slower. So we're still seeing prices going up. And with these new wars, we're expecting gas prices to go up now. That's going to mean higher prices in food. That's going to mean higher prices for everything. So jobs and inflation, the cost of living is another thing. Plus, we want to talk about things like healthcare. Of course, these are things that are on people's minds, because when you have people refusing to go to the hospital to deal with broken bones because they know that it's going to be a 40 or $50,000 hospital bill while they get their bones set, it keeps people from even living a decent life and working, even a job, because now they have a broken leg or some disease that they could have gotten cured had they been able to obtain, reasonable cost healthcare, or, as I would prefer, nationalized healthcare, because they can't get any access to healthcare because it's going to bankrupt their families and maybe put them out on the streets, maybe cause their kids to go without meals, certainly not allow them to save any money. For me, these are the three biggest things. We can think of a whole list of things. I think student loans is another problem that we have in this country. Massive credit card debt, environmental destruction. I mean, for crying out loud, we were talking right before the show, just in a couple minutes, about how you mentioned that Chile is experiencing wildfires that's killed 100 people already. This summer is going to be brutal in California. We're going to see that again over and over and over again. We're going to see wildfires, massive storms. Living in Iowa here, I'm seeing my insurance premiums in this state go up by 25% because of climate caused natural disasters like derechos. We had two massive derechos that wiped out all these farms in this area. And not to say anything against the people of Iowa, because the people of Iowa are good, salt of the earth type people or whatever. But these are the same idiots that vote for Chuck Grassley and Donald Trump. And then they wonder why their crops are being destroyed and their farms are being destroyed, because they have been convinced that the Republican Party is going to offer them the solutions that they're looking for, when as a matter of fact, those people don't care about the farmers any further than they can throw them. And there's evidence that they don't care about the farmers. They're promoting all these climate destroying economic systems like oil drilling and fracking and every other damn thing that's putting all these pollutants in the atmosphere. And this is one thing I actually mentioned before. I'll stop. I'll get off my soapbox here. But why is it that 1,000 people are being asked to use paper straws when one billionaire can just fly their private jet around and just negate everything they do? I've been recycling for years. All this. I've been not getting plastic bags or whatever. Everything that I've been asked to do, and a billionaire can just negate all my hard work and all the hard work of my 1,000 neighbors, and nothing's being done about that guy. No one's asking him to give up his private jet. They're asking me to give up things, and yeah, we should get rid of plastic bags. But I expect that the people who are actually polluting the environment are billionaires, are corporations. I mean, maybe Stephanie has the figures on this. It's something like the billionaire class contributes something like 40% of all the environmental destroying pollutants in the world. The billionaires and the corporations provide all this stuff. We're not asking any of them to sacrifice. And I think that there's a couple reasons for that, because we're actually putting a systemic problem like environmental destruction on individuals and asking individuals to solve it. I mean, that's completely inappropriate. We need systemic solutions to systemic problems. But another thing is, of course, the billionaires are the ones that write the rules. So they write themselves out of any kind of burden sharing. So I think those are my big ones. Peace, the cost of living, and healthcare would be my big one. And also the environment, I guess, is big four.
I think the stat you're referring to is that 100 companies are responsible for 71% of emissions.
That's it.
I would say capitalism is responsible for almost all of climate change, because if we were to run our economy in a sustainable and democratic way, we wouldn't have went down this road. There's just no reason for it. As far as issues, I would say peace, climate change, economic democracy, austerity. What I pay in premiums and what my university pays, I think it's $22,000 a year for my insurance premium for me and my husband, which is, I mean, I make slightly over double that. And when you talk about taxes, it actually ends up, so when you have what my university is paying, because I work at a university, is paying for my premium every month, plus what I'm paying and what I'm paid. Every 2 weeks, Medica gets about as much money as I do as a result of me working full time, just for my premium, which is just wild if you think about it.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Something I wanted to touch on a little bit. It's hard to turn the TV on when you see how things are going. It seems like we're not making any progress. And yes, I won't deny that in many ways we are going backwards, especially when it comes to things like abortion rights, trans rights. So in 1901, the Socialist Party of America formed, and this was the bulk of their platform. These were some of their major demands: women's suffrage, barring children under 16 from working, free public education for all, this is primary education, unemployment and social security benefits, and the creation of a public health department, a labor department, Department for Occupational Health and Safety, and the establishment of basically what would be an environmental protection agency. This was their platform in 1901. And it wasn't the Socialist Party itself that achieved all these things. It was the organization of unions and public pressure that forced these reforms. But at the time, I'm sure they were looking at these goals the same way we're looking at some of the goals we have. We don't see it as possible, but it really is. And radicals really do write the future. We have these policy solutions. If these problems are ever to be solved, this is how they're going to be solved. And I might not see how exactly that's going to happen, but when you turn on the TV and you see a genocide happening and you feel just, it just pierces
Helpless.
Very overwhelming.
Overwhelmed.
You feel like you can't do anything. Personally, I feel like I've worked my entire life and things are collapsing, but you can't let that get to you, because like, what's the alternative? I'm not going to give up. And fighting for these causes is what keeps me going, because I feel like I am making a difference. We made a difference here I think the new superintendent of Minneapolis Public Schools just started. We're also fighting for to make Minnesota a sanctuary state for immigration, and immigration, it looks like, is going to be a big issue in the Democrat and Republican campaign. it should be an issue for us too. One thing I wanted to mention that I should have said before is one thing that also defines the Socialist Party is that we are a socialist feminist party. We are an intersectional socialist feminist party, which is different than liberal identity politics or the class reductionism of more reactionary leftists who think that groups like Black Lives Matter or any groups that focus on human rights issues of like a specific group are just distracting us from class consciousness. We believe in intersectional revolution, intersectional liberation of all peoples. And all these things are connected. We are very staunchly feminist. I don't know how you can be a leftist and not be a feminist, but
some people manage. I don't know how.
Yeah, it's no matter who you are, if you're listening to this, especially if you're in Minneapolis, because I could definitely use your help. We're going to be gathering signatures too to get on the ballot. There are so many things you can work on and so many things you can do to make a difference. And it doesn't have to be in electoral politics. I understand a lot of people don't want to get into it because it's kind of a slag, honestly. It's especially if you're a third party, because the Democrats were not happy with us winning elections, even though these are uncontested districts that Republicans aren't going to win or even run in. But when we won, they didn't look at us and look at our policies and think, this seems to be what people actually want. Maybe we should look into this. No, they're going to do everything they can to make sure that we never get on the ballot, we never run again, we never win again, because that's what they care about. They don't care about democracy. They care about maintaining power. It can be disheartening, but we still have the ability to fight. And as long as we do, I will be there to do it.
Yeah, I mean, if we could find a bunch of people that actually believe in democracy, we could get them to sign all of our petitions to get people on the ballot, because that would be like the full.
No, I'm not joking. I think
that's what we should be doing. That the fullest democratic rights. That we should be able to have a lot of different choices on the ballot instead of just two.
Well, I'm not saying. I think we should work together on this.
Can I say something about this then?
Yeah, and let's think of this as kind of wrapping up too. So just so you know, because we're running low on time here. So go ahead.
I'll try to make it quick. I think that there's two different kinds of democracy that we're talking about here. What the socialists are talking about is a substantive form of democracy, where we're actually saying the people can substantially impact and affect the course of the government. They can substantially rule. Where their vote actually means something, where they vote for things and they see those things reflected in the policy of the government that's elected, or they participate themselves in that policy-making process, as opposed to some formal form of democracy, which Democrats talk about when they say we want democracy, blah, blah, blah. What they want is for people to cast a meaningless vote that they don't have to listen to, and there's no binding on the people that are elected based on that vote. And once you vote after 4 years, then you're done every 4 years. And it's kind of like the Stevie Wonder song that talks about how politicians ignore people in the ghetto and poor people all the time until election time comes around. Then the politicians are out knocking on the doors talking about, oh, we care about the poor, we care about the workers. Because we have this formal sort of democracy, and what we're looking for is a substantive or substantial form of democracy. When Stephanie talked about revolution, this is part of what she's saying. We need a fundamental radical change in the structure of our economics and our politics and the relationships we have within our society. I talk about social revolution. It's part of the same process. We need a radical change in the way we do things in this country so that the current system, which is not only, only half stepping with regard to actual people's power, but also contains a number, like a myriad of roadblocks to prevent people from actually getting into power, is changed in such a radical way where people aren't ever denied that ability. And I also got to remember that in our country, if we truly are a 50-50 country, I don't know that we really are. I don't know that that statistic is actually very accurate, but if we truly are a 50-50 country, if we just give it for the sake of argument, that means that 50% of the population isn't going to want what we're selling. And so while we get rid of these roadblocks, we also have to empower people to make decisions in such a way where they're willing and able to defend their own interests, whatever those interests happen to be. If those interests are, heaven forbid, knock on wood, to line me up in front of a firing squad and shoot me, I might have to go to Cuba to avoid that. But I mean, if that's what our democracy turns into, but I think that if you actually gave people the power over their own communities, over their own workplaces, over the various institutions that get people to divide against one another, and you said, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to do something different. So you all figure out how to run your society and run your economy in a way that benefits you all the most. People are going to pick clean air over dirty rivers and dirty air. People are going to pick a society that doesn't just incarcerate, a whole 1% of our population and keeps them incarcerated and keeps them from exercising their basic, civil rights in this country. People are going to pick peace. People are going to pick controlling the places that they work and reaping the benefits rather than handing it over to some group of 110 billionaires. People are going to pick this, I think, if they're actually given real control over their society. And so that's the difference between what we're talking about, substantive form of democracy, where people actually control these things from the bottom up, from the local areas. They control their own economies. It's not this top-down model anymore, which is what our current system is based on. You're actually talking about a revolution, like a changing of the regime in this country. At the end of it, that's what you have to do. You can't just continue on with liberal bourgeoisie democracy the way we have it now. We actually have to change that. And so actually getting people to start talking about socialism and start voting for socialism and start organizing in their communities, in their workplaces, in their schools, in their unions, and every other organization they have for socialism is the first step in that process, which at the end of it, becomes popular democracy, becomes economic democracy, which becomes social equality. And there's all this great stuff that we say we want at the end of the day. We got to take those first few steps first. And the Marxists out there are probably cheering, they're like, oh yeah, he's saying like socialism is the transition period. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like when we do get socialism. I don't know what it's going to lead to, but I'm hoping that the people start deciding things in their own interest and start deciding what's best for them when they have the opportunity to do so. Right now, we don't have that opportunity. Socialism aims at getting people that opportunity to make their own destiny, to make their own future, and to start thinking about what a clean planet can look like, and start thinking about what an equal economy can look like, or what a more equitable distribution of resources in the society can look like, including social and political capital, where you don't have just a bunch of elites telling you what's up, but I'm actually feeling that the things I'm voting for, I actually get to see in law and that kind of stuff. So that's what socialism, I think, is. It points to that substantive form of democracy, that substantive form of people's power, rather than this formal nonsense we have in this society.
It's like what Stephanie was saying about intersectionality and about fighting for people's actual liberation versus liberal performativity, that they're playing a game, and the game is never intended to give you your rights or meet your basic needs. It's just it's just a game of who can say the right things and who can who can keep the working people at bay while they steal all the money and all that stuff. And then one other statistic that I found related to what you guys were talking about before was one of the Guardian articles about an analysis, and it was in their the Great Carbon Divide, where they said that 12 billionaires' climate emissions outpolluted 2.1 million homes. So that's just 12.
Yeah, I think that's something like what I was thinking about too.
It said the richest 1% account for more carbon emissions than the poorest 66%. So there's a lot of numbers like this that almost sound like unbelievable, but I mean that's how stark the situation is here. And I think climate is like one of the top issues, but as far as connecting to people, I feel like it's still that issue of sometimes it's like people can't take it on. It's just like so overwhelming. And I think the genocide and the helplessness that people feel around that is they want peace. I think peace is a good way to frame that, but they're getting, there's a kind of this overwhelming thing. I think obviously the affordability, that's a huge one. That's like every day they're just feeling this, people are feeling this crushing weight. And it's like people that have insurance and they still can't get any medical care. Well, I really appreciate that. I really appreciate the chance to hear from you. I will, I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on the campaign. I definitely believe we should all be out there trying to make this a disaster for the two parties of Wall Street, leave them in disarray in November. I think there's a lot of opportunity for that, more so this year than maybe ever. We need a lot of public discussion among different left-wing campaigns, labor movement, other social movements. As we move forward, I think, that could lead to a lot of success. Is there anything else that either of y'all want to share before you go?
I just wanted to say that, as a Socialist Party member and the Socialist Party in general, we don't struggle to find our purpose or relevancy right now. We see the colossal failures of capitalism. We see that we need better leadership and a better system. And we do offer real change, a real alternative. And we know that capitalism is not sustainable. We see it dying in front of us. And unfortunately, depending on how this pans out, it could do a lot of damage in the process. We will eventually have to change. So ultimately, the question that we're looking at right now is not whether or not capitalism will die. It's whether it will take us with it. And that is ultimately what we have to think about this generation when we make these political choices.
I'm going to go the shameless plug route. We are at SPUSA 2024 on everything. SPUSA2024.org is our website. Come check us out there. We have some stuff, and we're going to be putting more stuff up as the days pass here, with regard to where we stand, some of our policy positions, how you can get involved in the campaign. We have volunteer links there. We have donate links. If you happen to have some extra money in your pocket and you want to kick it down to the campaign, we'll be happy to take it and put it to good work. Also, let your friends know. Tell people that it's there. If you happen to be listening to our interview here on Socialist News and Views, tell everybody you know to check it out. Go on YouTube, SPUSA 2024, SPUSA 2024 on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok even. We have a TikTok account, believe it or not. Although I am a little bit too old to figure out how to do it, so I got to figure out how to work that thing. But we are SPUSA 2024 everything. And also, while you're doing that, while you're checking that out, check out the socialistpartyusa.net. Socialistpartyusa.net is the Socialist Party's website. There you can see the party's platform. You can see our principles. And if you happen to read the principles and think, man, that's right on, I really dig that, by all means, join the party. It can't hurt. You will be doing a lot of great work. There's probably a local in your area, or if there's not, you can form one. This is how we get an organization capable of actually addressing capitalism started here. Now we're kind of hitting the bottom of the barrel after COVID, but I mean, I think everybody is. So we're not any much further behind, PSL or anything like that, with regards to where we're at. And it's all up from here. We're building again. We're the whole aim of this campaign is to build the party up. So socialistpartyusa.net is a very important place, has a lot of great information on it, and it will tell you about things that comrades across the country are doing. North Carolina, we got Wayne running for governor. We have William Chichi running down in Arkansas
Nice.
for office for basically it's Justice of the Peace, but it's more than that. They just call it Justice of the Peace as his office. Our good friend Josh Bradley is running in North Carolina. I believe he's running for city council. Is that right, Stephanie?
Yeah, city council.
We have other individuals that are looking to start campaigns under the Socialist Party banner. Stephanie, you can tell about the school board in Minneapolis, where we have 3 Socialist Party USA members.
Well, I know we have to wrap up, but yeah, you can check it out, the website. Thank you so much, Nicholas, for having us.
Yeah, I really appreciate the time, and thanks for speaking with me. And and I will include links to all the things that you mentioned as well. So thanks.
Thank you very much.